Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, I guess. It has been way too long since my last video. It's been like probably a year and a half, I think, since my last video. And I do apologize for that. Let me just start with that. I get burnout really easily on YouTube. So honestly, every video I make, there's like a minimum of like 6 months in between. This time was just the longest gap in between videos, but I'm back. So yeah, thanks for sticking around, those of you who are still here. Yeah, I wanted to come back to YouTube with a video idea that I've had in mind for quite a while now. See, I built up a following on Instagram and TikTok, sharing my experiences as a teacher in the classroom. After nearly 10 years of teaching English in Japan though, I'm done. And don't get me wrong, I'm still a teacher, I just don't teach English anymore. I work at an international school now, where most of the subjects are taught in English, so there isn't much of a need for English as a subject to be taught. In 2022, I began a 9-month teacher preparation course, which concluded in 2023. And then after completing a series of American teacher certification exams, I got my teaching license. Now, I had this goal in mind for a while before beginning the whole process, and so I want to take this time to just share my thoughts and why I wanted to pursue it. As I mentioned before, I taught English for nearly 10 years in Japan, and I taught for 3 years in China before that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Tons of foreigners come to countries like China or Japan as English teachers for a few years, and if they don't decide to return to their home countries, they will continue to live in the country, but they often will change professions. Maybe they'll go into IT or entertainment or business or content creation, etc. I would guess that there aren't that many people who choose to stay within the English teaching profession as long as I have. I think I'm pretty rare. I could be wrong, but in Japan, I always got the impression from foreigners who weren't English teachers but living in the country that to be an English teacher, it's kind of uncool. You know, they kind of look at you with disdain. Like, oh, you're an English teacher? Okay, that kind of a vibe. It's one of the easiest jobs to get as a foreigner in Japan, so I think people kind of place it at the bottom of the totem pole in their mind. But like I said, I really enjoyed my time as an English teacher, so I never let people's negative opinions of the profession deter me from continuing in the profession year after year. They were honestly some of the best years of my life. And the reason I enjoyed these years so much wasn't because of the quote-unquote easy job that it was, or because it was really lucrative, or because it allowed me to travel. It was because of the students I taught. I found so much joy, not only in educating the students and helping them grow in their English skills, but also building relationships with the students and building into them as individuals. Kids are so interesting. They can drive you crazy with their insane amount of energy and their seemingly endless questions. They can frustrate you when they don't listen to instructions, or they inevitably do the opposite of what you want them to do constantly. But they can also be incredibly sweet and caring, and are nothing if not sincere, whether it be in the best ways or the worst ways. I've loved investing in students throughout my teaching career, and because of that, I've never once considered giving up, despite whatever negative opinions people had of the profession. It can be difficult though to have meaningful relationships with students when English is their second language, and many of the younger students I taught really couldn't say much more than yes or no when I would ask them questions. All of my English classes were always taught in English, as this was a pretty strict rule from the schools that I would teach in. Japanese was not allowed in class. So while it wasn't difficult for me to bond with my students, which was something extremely important to me, it was difficult for the students to adequately express their thoughts when they needed assistance, and even to ask questions, and vice versa. I couldn't speak Japanese with the students, and so if there was something I wanted to share with them, no matter how simple I made what I wanted to say to them, some things just went over their heads, and that wasn't their fault. Older students had an easier time with this, as they had many years of English in most cases under their belt. But younger students, it was always a struggle. So back to 2022. Up until that point, I had always been a bit unsure of what I wanted to do long term with my career. I had taught English for so long and I loved it, but I knew it was something that I wouldn't want to do permanently for the rest of my life. I remained in the profession for as long as I did because it was easy, it was stable, and like I said, I had no idea what I would do otherwise. I had a college degree, which is one of the usual requirements for teaching English in Japan, but it wasn't in anything related to education. So while I did enjoy teaching children, I didn't think it was something I could do long term outside of English teaching specifically. But I started to realize around that time that actually it was absolutely possible. I spent most of my teaching career teaching in Japanese schools with a mostly Japanese student body. International schools, of which there are many in Japan, often house students of diverse ethnic and cultural backgrounds. They also typically use English as the primary language of instruction. After a friend of mine casually suggested international schools as a possibility for me in the future, I began to seriously consider it as an option for myself. Most international schools do require a teaching license though, something which I did not have. So I spent the next year putting in the necessary work to acquire one as I applied to various international schools. Flash forward to now, I'm working as a first grade teacher in an international school with my US teaching license. If you'd like to know what that process was like, you can comment below and maybe I can do a video about that sometime. A noticeable difference since moving to my current school has been a significant drop in the number of questions and comments I get about my skin and hair color. The kids at my school are used to seeing people who look different than them every day. Not only in the faculty, but also the student body itself. There are, of course, students who are curious still and ask questions and make their comments, but honestly, I'm used to that at this point. We all know that. It's honestly been quite refreshing being able to teach in such a diverse community. All in all, it's been a wild ride so far, but it's definitely been one that I've enjoyed. I've been able to connect with my students in ways that I was never able to in the past, and have grown so much as an educator, which was something I also really wanted to do for myself. And just to be clear, this is not at all a diss to anybody who teaches English or to anyone who's an English learner who isn't fluent in the language yet. Just wanted to make that clear. The memories I made in the past with so many of the students I've taught are honestly some of the most precious memories I have. I regret not a single one of those years. They were amazing. But when I thought about what I wanted to do with my career in the future, I just knew that transitioning from an English teaching life to a more holistic teaching career, it just made the most sense and would open up so many doors for me as well. If you'd like to know more about my journey or have any questions for me, please comment down below, and I promise you I will not be gone for another year and a half. So yeah, let me know. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.